Mr. Richard Munang, passionate about volunteerism, passionate about ecosystem-based adaptation. Please share with us some of your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. All protocols observed. An African proverb tells us that if you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. The UNEP Adaptation Gap report highlighted what we've already heard from panelists, that actually developing countries are 5 to 10 times greater need in adaptation costs than the current financial flows. And I think building on what Lamin and Tony and other panelists have already said is that we need to look at the reality of the continent today. We have a continent that have 80% of the people in the informal sector, including youth, where they also find jobs from this informal sector. What the United Nations Environment Program is doing is actually helping countries to turn their NDCs into investment plans. Because let's face it, we're speaking today in a continent where we have 72% of all the NDCs that have been submitted by the countries not turned into investment plans. That is not going to attract investment. And what is happening is that we cannot be able to forget those who need the finance most. The informal sector is seen as a risky sector. And therefore, de-risking this sector becomes quite very, very important. And using the public limited resources to be able to develop de-risking tools to incentivize, especially cooperatives. Because each and every one of us who grew up in the African continent, we are either used to what is called Njangis in Central African region or Chamas in East Africa, and it has different names across the entire African continent. What if we leverage these cooperatives? And that's what we're doing, working through this, engaging youth, but also ensuring that investments are actually in what we call Africa's catalytic sectors. When you look at the entire agro-value chain, Africa loses $48 billion each and every year because of post-harvest losses due to inefficiency in the entire agro-value chain. We need then to change the narrative of only adaptation or mitigation, but to start talk mitigation to power adaptation. Imagine a mother in northern Gabon who is losing her vegetables just because she doesn't have a simple solar dryer to be able to dry that vegetables. Imagine a mother in Mwe in Kenya who loses 50 kilograms of her rice when there is a downpour. And even when there's no downpour, they dry that rice in open space and it gets contaminated, and then they don't fetch a market. What if a simple solar dryer is actually decentralized to this model? So to start to think the complementarity between mitigation, powering, adaptation, it's a very, very important. And that's what we've leveraged to engage young people across the continent. And that takes me to that point, which is very important. We're talking about financial resources here as a standalone, which I think the biggest resource that Africa have got is her youth. That's the sovereign capital. If you get 500 trillion US dollars without having the skills of the youth, without having the youth with the requisite skills, that money might not be able to bring transformational climate action. It therefore means that we must then be able to invest the little resources we have in our young people to retool their skills so that at least they can be able to leverage those skills to start to turn climate challenges into climate opportunity. And that is actually what the UN Environment Program with partners across the continent have actually done. And the last aspect is that of narrative. Climate change is projected as a liability that scares investments, but it needs to be projected as an opportunity. Let's take the charcoal market. We're talking in a continent today where over 80% of the entire continent uses charcoal for cooking. This is not only causing indoor pollution, but it's also costing lives. 700,000 lives in the continent as a result of indoor pollution. But the charcoal market is worth $20 billion US dollars. What if we incentivize our young people to start retooling their skills to turn simple agricultural waste into fuel briquettes that have been proven to be 2 to 3 times more effective than charcoal? We tap into the market of 20 billion, we will save lives. And that's quite very, very important. And just to end with this African proverb, which says that when you carry your own water, you will know what every drop means. Only those who feel the pinch of climate change can be able to tell the story. And that story is that of livelihood, because Africa's vulnerability is because of a low socioeconomic base. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I will not even attempt to summarize what you've said. You've said it so powerfully.